We're going to launch this whole series with a technique that I have used more than any other one. Seriously, once I learned this technique, I could not stop using it in my fiction. So this isn't just an exercise to, generally help you improve as a writer. This is going to be a technique that you will use in your books. Now, to learn about this exercise, I need to tell you a story. I was honeymooning in Belize, and my wife and I decided to go scuba diving in the Blue Hole. So we got hooked up with a scuba diving crew, we went pretty far out on a boat, it's pretty remote, and we jumped in the water with our gear. So everybody plunges, and they're just going down, they're disappearing, and I'm like 5-10 feet down trying to equalize my ears, and I can't get them to work. Eventually, I finally equalize my ears, and I dive too. And I'm going down, and the light starts disappearing. It starts getting dark, because, first 30 feet it's still pretty light. 60 feet gets a little darker. 80 feet, it's getting dark. And while I'm down there checking out these gigantic grouper fish and these stalactites and stalagmites that are on the walls of the Blue Hole, I see these shapes above me, and I sort of briefly glance and I think, oh, a whole scuba diving team has gotten in the water above us. I see all these bodies. So I swim around a little bit more, and then my wife comes over to me and she's going, pointing upwards. And I look again, and what I thought were other scuba divers were actually sharks circling in the water above us. Now, most people would be terrified at that point, but most sharks aren't actually dangerous to humans. Most shark varieties don't eat humans, so we were actually thrilled to see sharks. It did make me a teensy bit nervous that, the sharks were between me and getting back to the surface, but by the time we surfaced, they had vanished, so voila. I tell you that story because it is an example of Ian Watt's notion of delayed decoding. Delayed decoding means at first when I looked up, I thought, oh, it's other scuba divers in the water above me. And then when my wife pointed me to look back, I realized, no, those are actually sharks. Now, Ian Watts figured out this technique of delayed decoding by reading Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. In Heart of Darkness, you have Marlowe, right? And he's on a boat, he's in the heart of Africa, and he sees sticks flying over the water and sticks going into the water. And then all of a sudden you realize, those aren't sticks, those are arrows. We're being shot at by the natives. And there was a second example as well, where Marlowe was on a boat, and all of a sudden, the skipper of the boat, he stumbled over, and he fell onto the ground, and there was a cane. Suddenly he had a cane, and the cane was attached to his chest. And then Marlowe realizes, it's not a cane, that's a spear. Someone has just speared him through the heart. See, in both of those examples, Marlowe initially thought, oh, those are sticks, oh, those are canes. Something completely natural, something completely normal. And then it dawns on him that he is in danger, that they are being attacked. So your writing assignment is to have an event happen to your character that at first they misinterpret. They see a person in the crowd who they think is their long-lost lover, but on second glance, it's just a stranger. They think their kid kicked the seat behind them really hard, but then they realize, no, someone crashed into me. They think some boy in the street is brandishing a gun, but then they realize it's only a stick. Now remember, this only works if you're writing close third person or if you're writing first person. Don't try this with an omniscient narrator, it won't work because it relies upon the mental perception of the narrator. Now why is a technique like this so good, and why are you going to use it all the time now that you know it? This technique is wonderful because it misdirects the reader. Like a magic trick, misdirection is one of the great pleasures of fiction, and every great writer uses it quite liberally. Second, this technique is really great because it creates a small mystery. We force the reader to think one thing is happening, and then slowly guide them to the true realization. Third, a technique like this is really great because it can expose the desires of the character. For instance, if a character sees their long-lost lover rather than a stranger in the crowd, that is exposing what they want. It is a great way to get at the psychology of your character. Or if they mistake a boy for brandishing a gun, you're really exposing some sort of fear in their hearts. They are scared, they are frightened. So this technique really works when you can figure out why the character is misinterpreting an event. Okay, that is it for me. Now it is time for you to step up and take a stab at this. First of all, start with some sort of sensory misinterpretation of your character. Touch, sight, smell, taste, hearing, or some combination of all of those. And once you've teased that out for a second, show the slow dawning of realization as they realize what is actually happening. Happy writing!